Alex, I'd now like to get back to you and ask you about some of the pitfalls you mentioned earlier that you want to avoid having independent contractors. And I wanted to explore why is that?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question, Phil. So, in New Jersey, uh, the the ABC, what's called the ABC test applies to determining whether a worker is an independent contractor or an employee. And it's a really strict test. There are only ABC, there are only three factors, and in order for a worker to be classified properly as an independent contractor, they have to meet all three. And usually the biggest pitfall is a company hires someone to do work for their business that is really part of their core business. So you're a technology company and you hire someone to do something in the technology field that is your business. That can't be an independent contractor. That's, you failed the test right there. It has to be outside your core business. But if you're hiring a lawyer, for example, an attorney, or a bookkeeper, or somebody that's outside your core business, well, that's fine. They can be an they also have to own their own business to be an independent contractor. An LLC is usually enough. That's okay. But by owning their own business, they're not just working for you, they're working for other businesses too. And then you might get into issues of competition, right? And sharing of, again, you can have confidentiality agreements with independent contractors, but you really can't have non-competes because they're supposed to have their own business working most likely in the same industry if that's their expertise.
Can I ask
Um,
a question, Alex,
yeah,
with respect to independent contractors? Why would an employer find it advantageous to have an independent contractor as opposed to an employee?
yeah, that is a good question. And I'm sure most of you out there know this, me perhaps, but I will answer that because it's advantageous. Well, and sometimes it's advantageous to the worker too. It's advantageous to the employer because you don't have to pay payroll tax, right? You don't have to pay, you don't have to pay unemployment tax. You don't have to pay Social Security or Medicare. None of those withholdings that come normally there's the employer, there are the employer obligations and then the employee obligations. And that's why often workers like that too, because they just get paid and then it's between them and their tax attorney or accountant as to how much tax they pay on their earnings. Nothing's withdrawn. Um, the downfall is that when the government determines that this person is truly an employee and not an independent contractor, it comes down on the employer to pay those back taxes and back withholdings, plus interest, plus penalties for having misclassified that employee or that individual. And often it's interesting because how it works sometimes because the individual initially wants to be an independent contractor for that very reason because they're not paying taxes either, at least not initially, or having those withholdings taken out of their income. But when they stop working for your company, somebody whispers in their ear, oh, you're entitled to unemployment. Well, actually, it's an independent contractor. You're not. And so they go and apply for unemployment, and that's how the Department of Labor finds out that they were misclassified or may have been misclassified. And then they do an investigation, costs the company money, and perhaps even more money in back taxes back. And then if they didn't pay overtime when they should have, there could be that issue as well, plus all the penalties and interest. I did want to just mention the third factor is control over how or when the worker performs the work. And if the employer has a lot of control over their hours, where they do the work, whose equipment they use, all of that's the other factor that, would mean that this is really an employee.